Hello, hello, hello. I am Gabriel Pickup, joined by my fantastic co-host Donovan Gibbs, and we are here for the 73rd edition of the Rutgers Scarlet Knights Voice of College Football podcast. If you like the show, make sure you hit that like button and definitely subscribe. It helps us out a lot. And we have a very busy show today. So as you all know, the transfer portal officially opened up on Friday. We saw a lot of players deciding to leave, some players deciding to stay, very exciting players deciding to stay. And then we got some new additions today, yesterday, and I believe our first one was late on Saturday that we will be talking about. Who we missed out on. There's a couple quarterbacks specifically that Donovan and I were very eager to possibly land that didn't quite work out. Not that we're disappointed per se, but just some guys that Rutgers kind of missed out on, and what we still need. So without further ado, let's start off with who is staying, because, players staying is better than them leaving. And let's start off on a positive note in 2026. First off, Antoine Raymond decided to stay, and Jason O, very correct. We are back up. We're back up with Antoine Raymond deciding to stay and another player in a second, but Antoine Raymond
back in the banks.
Domino. And back to the banks, man. Couldn't be more happy about Antoine Raymond staying, because he was posting some cryptic Instagram stories sounding like he was a little indecisive.
Yeah, I'm happy he's staying because he was a big production for this rushing attack for Rutgers, the 1,000-yard rusher, and he didn't really get to see most of the carries until week 3 or week 4 when CJ Campbell went down. And I'm happy that he recognized that if he stayed at Rutgers, he has a better chance of being that overall running back one that we saw to finish off the season. And possibly this time, with seeing how well he played last year, he could potentially be a 1,300, 1,400-yard rusher with all those carries that he's going to get next season that he missed out on this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when I saw CJ Campbell hitting the transfer portal, I thought he probably knows something that we don't. And then I saw Samuel Brown, the 5th, hit the transfer portal, and I'm like, there's no way that this is not because of, Antoine Raymond staying, right? But then I saw Antoine Raymond post something like God will sort it out in the end. And it was a picture of him on at SHI Stadium, and it was in black and white, and it got me a little concerned. I'm sure that all of you who saw the post, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So in the end, I'm happy he made the right decision, in my opinion. Any doubt that wasn't the right decision?
No, it was leaving would have been just something I would have had down on, because primarily there's a lot of good running backs that are going to be in the portal this year, and he was going to have to now face off with potentially still being in that RB2 spot when at Rutgers, if he stays, he has a chance of still being that starter that he was to finish off the year. I'm just happy he was able to stay, and now that gets us into the grand return that a lot of Rutgers fans were able to see this Saturday at a Rutgers halftime show.
Yeah, you know exactly what we're going to be talking about next. Everybody watching, KJ Duff decided to stay, and he didn't just announce it. He had a grand reveal, halftime show there at Jersey Mike's Arena during a Rutgers basketball game. I believe it was the Ohio State one. I could be wrong. Basically, there was a highlight reel playing at, on the big screen, KJ Duff highlights. You could sense the arena started to get the hint that maybe this is something related to his decision. And then it pans to KJ, and the PA announcer got the instructions to read out that KJ Duff is returning for another year. Now, imagine being the only person in attendance knowing that KJ Duff is coming back. That's some big beans that you can't really spill. But like that split second where you're the only one who knows and most of Rutgers Nation thinks he's gone, that must have been a hell of a feeling and a secret to keep.
Being able to hold on to a secret like that has to be something of just grand pressure, because to be honest, if that was something I would have been told, I would have told my friends who were Rutgers, oh, he's staying, don't tell anybody. But that's something that was all pristine amount of information that he had to withhold on, and being able to not only tell that at halftime, but the response that KJ Duff got at halftime, seeing everybody in the arena cheer for his return, definitely might have sweetened the pot a little bit for KJ, seeing that he's genuinely loved and
Oh
here
yeah.
play.
And now he has a chance to be. I mean, he already had an all-time great Rutgers season, but he has a chance to have an all-time great Rutgers career because this year he was the 1A receiver for the latter half of the year, 1B the first half of the year. Next year, he's not just the 1A or the 1B, but he's the clear number one option.
He's the X receiver next year.
Yeah, exactly. And whether it's Desir Carter, Ben Black, another wide receiver who hasn't come in yet, RJ Wortman, who is going to be a freshman. We don't know who wide receiver 2 is going to be, but I know that we're not going to lack on offense. If there's two positions that Rutgers has historically been very good at getting, it's running back and wide receiver. So, like that sort of history is repeating itself in this sense because we keep our two best players, and what are they? Running back and wide receiver.
Yes.
And by the way, these two guys, as of a couple hours ago, received the Phil Steele All-American team honors of 2025. So only fitting that they're coming back.
Yeah, being able to get two All Americans to return and two All Americans that genuinely made an impact and were respectively a top 5 player and at their position in the Big Ten. At that, KJ Dub arguably was the best wide receiver in the Big Ten, and the Big Ten had a Biletnikoff, Leonard, and Makai Lemon, and they have a potential first round overall pick whenever he wants to declare for the draft in Jeremiah Smith next year. So KJ Dove being in talks in that conversation with both of those guys is major for Rutgers, and not only just performance wise, but definitely in the transfer portal wise. And not only it just gave more of a focus for Rutgers to just be able to hone in on the trenches and now just secondary and quarterback.
Yeah, and there was one team in particular that kind of unnerved me that he might go to, and that's LSU, because they're trying to poach schools that are historically worse than them and steal their best talent. And that would have been a perfect fit. But what's an even better fit is staying in New Jersey where you belong. And what scared me is that one of his best friends, if not his actual best friend and, unofficial brother, did end up leaving. And we will get to that in just a second in the next part of this segment. So, I mean, I thought that if his friend was gone, then he was staying. But, he ultimately chose what was best for his career instead of sticking with who he was comfortable with. So
that's what I like the most. He was able to just focus on what he wants to do with his career instead of trying to follow alongside fellow teammates, because we've seen that in the portal a lot of times. One player leaves, then next thing half the team leaves, and that's something that happens in the portal a lot. That's something that just happened recently with Northern Illinois. A lot of their players just left, and we were able to get one of those guys as well from NIU. But for KJ to stay, and not only just for Rutgers in general to keep that much star power, it was major, and I'm just excited to see what next year unfolds. You were afraid for KJ to leave the LSU. I was worried that Indiana was going after him because Indiana was going to have some holes at the wide receiver spot, as Elijah Surratt is most likely heading for the draft this year, Omar Cooper Jr. heading into the draft potentially next year. And a lot of those doubts started to ease off once I saw that they got other Big Ten really good receiver, Nick Marsh from Michigan State. They were able to get him in the portal. Once I saw him go to Indiana, I was more thinking, okay, there's a great chance that KJ can stay, because the big schools right now are getting their players.
Yeah, I know Jason was worried about Ohio State getting him. I didn't think that was going to happen because Jeremiah Smith still has to play at least another year. And they just got the number 1 player in the class of 2026, who I'm forgetting the name of. But if I go to do a quick little, Chris Henry Jr. They just got, and he was the number 1 overall player, let alone receiver. And Ohio State just got him. So I wasn't too worried about Ohio State, but I was still worried that he would leave regardless because of how much money other schools could have given him. Could he leave after next year? Sure. Am I going to think about that right now? Absolutely not.
No, let's worry about the 2027 off season when the 2027
Yeah,
off season arrives.
exactly. I'm gonna appreciate KJ Duff being in Scarlet Red whenever, as long as I can. And there's two other guys who stayed: offensive lineman Kwabena Asamoah, who was a All Big Ten honoree, and Tyler Needham at outside tackle. So happy to have both of them back. They were definitely two of our more solid offensive linemen. Not all of our offensive line stayed. We actually lost most of it, and I'll get into that in just a second. But two offensive linemen that, they started a lot of games for us, and Asamoah was one of the better offensive linemen in the Big Ten. So I'm happy to still have both of them around at a group of a position group that we're sort of lacking depth in right now.
Yeah, and the fact that those two were easily outside of Gus and Linkus, two of the other better offensive linemen on that unit last year. Taylor Needham was a solid left tackle for most of the season, and you felt his presence when he was lost. There was the instance for example, during that Iowa game where he went out for a couple of plays, and
Yeah.
that worrying loom of who's going to be at that left tackle spot
Yep.
grew more and more during that game. And when he was able to come back, you started seeing Ethan feel more and more comfortable staying longer in the pocket compared to during those reps when he wasn't in the game. So they got two players back on that offensive line that played very, very meaningful snaps last season. And that's something that you can bring into spring and have that, I would say, that chemistry still with them. And that can help with transfers coming in, because this, with the departure of Taj White, the departure of the other right tackle, not Osmo, but the other right tackle, I'm forgetting his
Zach
name right now,
Omland.
but also Gus Link. Yeah,
Yeah.
him leaving and Gus Link is leaving. That's three holes right there that you're going to have to look at in the transfer portal. That now, you keeping two, you only have to get a center and another tackle.
Yeah. And with Jim Turner coming in too, and us landing another quarterback in the portal that has a similar play style to Ethan, I think is it fair to say that we can kind of determine next year if Jim Turner is better than Pat Flaherty in the long run?
100%. And now you have the opportunity to show, seeing from last year and into this year, two different teams. And I truly believe that the transfer portal recruiting stage right now for Shiano and this Rutgers team is not done. They still have
No,
a lot of
better.
holes to fill. And right now it's starting to go off to a good start. Dylan
Yeah.
Longren had a really good 2 years at Boston College, better than what Ethan had at Minnesota going
Yeah.
into his first year at Rutgers. And not only that, it definitely gives AJ Serace some competition, because Long Aaron has 2 years left, the same way Serace has 2 years left. So we're going to have a really good QB battle for who's ever going to start. And now as well, Boston College is the second game on Rutgers' schedule. So it's going to
Maybe
be
we can.
interesting to see Long Aaron go back to Cherry Hill the second week of the season.
Yeah, maybe we can finally have a good revenge game. And, we didn't get that last year with Ethan in Minnesota, unfortunately. But before we get to the additions, we have to get out of the way who is in the transfer portal. And I mentioned him earlier, not by name, but starting off, Ian Strong entered the transfer portal. And he already has visited Cal and Notre Dame. So he's got some teams that are going after him. I don't blame them. It's sad, though, because I really thought he was just going to declare for the draft. And every time we talked about Ian Strong, I don't know if you remember, but it was always, is he staying or is he declaring? It was never, is he leaving for another school?
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that he wants to go to another school and not try to stay here at Rutgers for one more year, especially with the addition of Longren. But seeing the teams that are interested in him going to Cal and being a number one wide receiver for potentially the JKS and Tristan DeJesus.
What's his name? Jackson Kiawu Sagatalele or something?
Yes, JKS. He showed a lot of promise last season for Cal with the lack of talent that he had. I'm just thinking specifically that SMU game at the end of the year, where even though Cal lost, he still threw for over 300 yards. And now him potentially getting a receiver in Ian Strong. If I'm Ian Strong, I would go there because that's QB talent, and you're most likely going to get a lot of the targets. And that's something that you're playing in an ACC where the talent defensively isn't as strong, so you're going to be able to make more of an impact.
It's
And
not
that's
as
something
strong,
that you
but
could.
is it as Ian Strong? So the appeal to Notre Dame isn't as strong with CJ Carr, and I don't know who isn't their wide receiver. His name is like Coleman or something, right? I don't know if he's
Yeah.
still.
Oh, Cam Coleman,
Yeah,
the Auburn transfer.
yeah. So what's his deal? Is he does he still have eligibility next year?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that's why, like, that's the thing. Does he want to go to Notre Dame? It's really going to come down to, is Strong more focused about his personal production? Because he's going to get targets for days if he goes Cal.
Yeah, 100%.
Hands down. But if he's more
could
focused
lead.
on potentially being on a championship contender outright, because at the end of the day, Notre Dame, they even have it in writing that if they're in the final 12 next season, they're going to be in the playoffs.
It's a really good position for Ian Strong to be in. I understand why he went through the portal route. I'm definitely rooting for him no matter what. But if he goes to Cal, he could legitimately lead all of FBS in receptions. I mean, he wasn't really a yards per catch guy, at least with us. He did have some breakout games, some long catches, but that was mostly DT Sheffield and KJ Duff going along with the receptions. He was sort of the if he was playing fantasy, he would be the perfect PPR kind of guy, because he was specifically the first half of the year. He was Athan's check down guy 100%. And
yeah, then that's the thing. He's sure hands, and that's a guy that he's gonna have a lot of receptions at the end of the year. I feel like if he goes to Cal, there's a chance that he leads the country in receptions.
Yeah.
And he's not really a yards after the catch guy. Yes, he can make plays, but most of his production comes from when the ball gets to his hands. And having a guy that has a strong arm like JKS is going to be something that is a match made in heaven for him. But he does have I think right now he's still the number 2 overall receiver in the portal until at least that's what On3 is saying.
And I believe even if he went to Notre Dame, I still believe he would be wide receiver 1. He just wouldn't get nearly as many touches. And I think he's number 2.
That's what On3 said. They said that he was the number 2 overall receiver, and I think Marsh was number 1.
Marsh, okay. Wow, really? Marsh over? Huh. I guess that's another debate for another day. I mean, they didn't have as many options over at Michigan State.
There was like a small amount of 4-star transfers at that wide receiver position, and I know it was Marsh, one or other person, and Ian Strong. So Ian Strong was a top 3, and he's still, at the end of the day, he only getting offers and interest. He hasn't made his decision yet, but right now he's getting good eyes for when it comes to schools looking after him. That, to be honest, a lot of people didn't expect for a Rutgers player outside of KJ Duff.
Yeah, and we have some breaking news. You may have been wondering, if you are watching, where's Adam at? What's going on with Adam? Ladies and gentlemen, he had an appointment with Dr. Bed, and I think it just ended a few minutes ago. We weren't made aware of this, and but it's okay because he is waking up from his deep slumber, and he'll be on shortly. But so one last question in regards to Ian Strong. And you know what? Adam's going to be very happy we have not talked about the new quarterback yet. Jason, I'll make sure to let him know that you have not been wondering where he is. One last question about Ian Strong before we get to who else we have lost and then who we have gotten. There's no chance. You don't think that there's like a little bit of hope that he comes back, or is he just too deep in the portal at this point?
The fact that Duff stays could be a potential thing that could get him back. I feel like if he comes back, it's going to be because KJ was able to talk to him about coming back. And Duff even posted something on his IG with a picture with him next to Ian Strong saying, "See you at the top." So there's
Yeah.
a potential that they're either going to play against each other or he's going to come back, because right now Ian Strong has a lot of decisions to make in regards to his career. There's still a chance that maybe he gets a combine invite. Maybe he's just waiting on that to potentially say, you know what, if the NFL are interested in giving me an invitation to the combine, I might as well go into the draft. So
You think he could go
a
into the
lot.
draft?
Yeah,
Huh.
I don't think he has to. He hasn't declared yet, because I don't think he has gotten the eyes yet. I feel like right now he's just seeing what he has in the portal, and then if the portal looks more attractive, he goes for that. But I still see Rutgers and the NFL still being potential options. Like, I don't see none of them closed off yet.
See, I always thought that when a guy announces he's entering the portal, that, there's a chance he goes back to the school and takes his name out of the portal, but that he was done considering the league for the year. I always thought that that was like basically an unofficial decline of the draft. But because I've heard lots of examples of guys putting their name in the portal and then taking it out, but I don't think I've heard of them putting their name in the portal and then saying, you know what, I'm going to declare for the draft.
I can truly see that being the possibility. I just don't. It really comes down to if he. I see that since he put his name in the portal, most likely the NFL isn't a primary option. But I just don't see it as like he's closing that door.
Yeah.
I truly just see him now just more focused on what schools are going to be able to give him the most money right now.
See, what concerns me is I think Jason is right, not because of the money, but I think because Greg Schiano has always had a policy: when players commit to the school, they don't visit elsewhere, they don't look elsewhere. And I think that he is he always strikes me as a coach that when you tell him something, he takes your word for it at face value. So I think that Ian Strong saying that he's going to enter the portal, I think that Schiano is done reaching out, and that's why
Yeah,
he's coming back.
I truly see Shiano being, once you make that decision, there's no going back type of coach.
Yeah,
So
because
there's
he did that for several of our commits from the class of 26 over the spring last year. They committed Tavion Branch, this dude Adam something, I want to say Adam Butler maybe. I know that they paid visits elsewhere, and then Shiano was done with them, and they decommitted and had to commit elsewhere. So that's it for Ian Strong. There's still several other guys. We talked about Zach Omland. I don't know if you had anything else to say about him. I mean, it's a loss about depth for sure.
I'm looking at Bo Musco and
Yeah,
the
I was just gonna
potential.
say Bo Masco. He has announced his intentions of entering the portal over a week ago. We talked about it on the show, but what we didn't talk about is his upcoming visit to the Ohio State University. Holy crap! I mean, he's ranked a top 5 corner in the portal, but man, Rutgers to Ohio State, that doesn't even sound right.
Well, it's the same as the corner we just got in the Zamir Dawood, going from Villanova to Rutgers, FCS to FBS, going from middle of the pack to lower tier Big Ten to the cream of the crop is major. And to be honest, Ohio State needs him. Seeing what a lot of Ohio fans, Ohio State fans, and just in general, a lot of people who watch the New Year's Eve game between Miami and Ohio State in the Peach Bowl, they can truly say that CJ Daniels
Whoa.
completely took over the game.
What the hell just happened? We are not Indiana. We are Rutgers, though. There's the banner. Hey, I was having trouble with that before the show started. I don't know what the hell just happened. Maybe that's the ghost of Adam appearing or something. Because whenever he comes on, for some reason, it goes default to Indiana. Shout out to Indiana VOCFB, but we are not them.
Yeah,
And
they have a lot to talk about coming up this week against Oregon. But
yeah, what do you think? This is unrelated, and I don't want to go into it too long, but what do you think about the portal being at the same time as the freaking playoffs?
it's interesting because not only it just tells players, at least the best players right now, we're seeing Indiana get everybody just because they're
Yeah.
winning games. It feels, when you play NCAA or like college football, more example, like college football
Mm.
26, and your championship contender grade keeps on getting higher and higher, and that
Yeah.
brings more interest to schools or interest from players to your school. We're kind of seeing that with Indiana. Indiana is getting everybody under the sun in the portal, and
Yep.
right now they don't even look like they're done. And you can hear it during the pregame pressers for this upcoming bowl matchup against Oregon. Dan Lanning is saying that Kirk Cignetti right now is more focusing on the portal than the big game.
Oh yeah, I
Kirk
remember that.
Cignetti saying that, hey, I'm just giving y'all a certain amount of time to ask me questions because I still got to focus on getting guys on campus for the portal.
Yeah, it's crazy. And speaking of getting somebody on something, finally, our sleepyhead Adam Lamparello
Hey
has
guys,
made an appearance.
yeah, so great to be on the show. Look, when you're 50 years old, sometimes you take naps. I took a nap and sadly woke up just a touch late, but it's great
Well,
to
an
be here.
energetic Adam is a
Oh,
perfect Adam for
here,
this.
I forgot to show you this. But Jason wanted me to let you know that because he didn't want to know where you were. He wasn't wondering.
Yeah, well, Jason, in case you were wondering,
He was enjoying the show just fine.
sorry to disappoint you, but yes, us older people, we take naps. And I woke up a bit late, but better late than ever, as they say. So I
So,
guess we're talking
yeah.
about transfer portal news.
Yeah, we were talking about who was staying: Antoine Raymond, KJ Duff, Kwabena Asamoah, Tyler Needham. And when we were talking about who was leaving, we talked about Ian Strong, we talked about Zach Omland. Right now, we're on Bo Masco. So, is there anything you want to say about who we've mentioned staying, and we're like halfway done with who's leaving?
The only thing I'll say about Bo Masco, I was a bit surprised to hear that he's in for a visit with Ohio State.
That's exactly where we are right now. Yeah, it's crazy.
All right.
To think
So,
about.
yeah, that's my only contribution on that note. So let's. What do you guys
It
think
makes
about that?
sense because Ohio State was getting killed in the air just last month, not even Monday. Was the game Monday or was it no?
Against
That
Miami?
game the game against Miami.
It was,
I think that was Friday.
It was either Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, Friday. And we saw CJ Daniels be able to just completely take over that game, chunk play after chunk play. Yes, Miami was still able to kill them with the running attack because at the end of the day, Miami has one of the more violent trenches in the entire country, and that's something that people have seen since the opening kickoff against Notre Dame. But Ohio State needs corners. A lot of their corners, or I would say a lot of their team, is either going to be in the draft or in the portal, and a lot of their defensive players from that were good this year are going to be drafted. Caleb Downs is not going to be there next year. Igbenogson is not going to be there next year, and he's their star corner. Caden Curry's not going to be there next year. So a lot of their great secondary guys are going to be gone. And Bo Masco, despite sometimes him getting beat in one-on-one man coverage, he's still a really good option out there that under development by DB coaches at Ohio State. There's a chance that you're going to get a great return out of him.
Yeah, 100%. I'm happy. Good for Bo Masco. One of the few players that had real signs of promise defensively last season. And, no matter what, I feel the same way with Ian Strong. I'm going to root for them. Like, for example, with Mo Toure, it felt like part of Rutgers beat Ohio State on Friday. And it felt like when he laid out the hit against Texas A&M that saved the ball game for Miami, it felt like we were part of that team. So that's sort of how I feel with Ian Strong, with Bo Masco, with Jordan Walker. Congratulations to all of them. Jordan Walker is actually the next player that I was going to talk about because he is headed to Georgia Tech, officially transferred to Georgia Tech. Nothing but respect for the captain of the defense last year. I hope that he can improve on sadly, a more competent team than us.
Well, can I ask you guys a question? And I don't mean this in a negative way as much as, is Bo Masco that good? Is Jordan Walker that good where you could see them actually playing at a Ohio State or a Texas or Georgia Tech? I mean, what are your thoughts on their on their talent, on their skill level.
For Masco, I could see him playing, but not as many snaps. I could see him as a potential slot corner or a corner that you bring in during dime packages. Walker, being at Texas Tech, yeah, I could see him
Oh,
being
he's
such a
a
part of
Georgia
Texas Tech.
Georgia
Oh,
Tech.
Georgia Tech.
Yeah. And he's not there on a visit. He committed.
Yeah, I could see him being a vital aspect for Georgia Tech
Well,
next season because
no
one thing
disrespect.
that they needed was defensive line.
No disrespect to any of our guys, because if you're good enough to make a college football team, that's miles ahead, I would say, of any of us, but not Donovan. That's miles ahead of Adam and
They're
I.
FBS. Hold on, that is miles ahead. Two different worlds.
Yeah, but y'all transfer over to FBS too. But look, Jordan Walker, I can understand because he's a good leader. He makes a lot of tackles for a front four guy. Bo Masco, I think at his peak, he could develop into a CB2 at Ohio State. I say could because at the moment he is not that level. But Jacoby Henderson heading to Virginia is what surprised me the most. Jacoby did not have a great year. He got targeted on a lot of plays. I hope he does well on Virginia, and I hope he's good enough to where he feels like Rutgers disrespected him by not playing more. But I don't see it right now. I don't understand because Virginia, they lost to Duke, but they still played in the ACC championship game. And I know that ACC technically isn't as good as the Big Ten currently, but to me, that was the big surprise is that a culture as good as Virginia took on a guy who at best is a project corner.
Yeah, what's interesting? When I think of like Jacoby Henderson going to the University of Virginia, which nearly won the ACC championship, Jordan Walker going to Georgia Tech, which was quite good this year, and then Masco,
the potential favorite for the ACC championship,
right?
This year.
Oh, and then Masco's getting interest from Ohio State and Texas. I'm thinking, gosh,
what are we doing
so
wrong
bad this year? I mean, if three of the players,
our defensive line coach Colin Farrell, he got hired by San Diego State like 2 days after we fired him.
Right. So it makes me think, wow, we must have had some talent on the defense.
And who was it was it Zach Sparber that got hired by Texas A&M?
Yes.
Like these are guys that like all of Rutgers Nation were complaining about all year.
Yeah, and our defense was terrible, but obviously there was talent on it. As
our pass defense was terrible at that. That's why seeing Jacoby Henderson and for most parts Masco, I thought Masco was going to stay another year then transfer.
Oh, I did too. Yeah.
That Masco's like he had a decent year, but him coming out and being one of the top corners might be just because a lot of the corners right now, as we speak, are still trying to enter the portal. I know Oregon had a couple of corners enter the portal just this week as well. So we're going to see what's going to go on come the later stages or possibly like the next couple of days because I still see people still entering their names into the hat and just figuring it out. Yeah. But him being the best that a lot of teams can go after right now is really saying a lot for just the depth of secondary in the portal right now.
Yeah, he's a top 5 portal cornerback according to On3.
Who are the other 4?
Oh man, that I don't know. Let me see. On3 cornerback rankings portal 2026. 2026 cornerback. Okay, it is. Oh no, that's for high school. All right, I'll get back to that at a later time. When you guys are making some later points. And the last guy, Taj White, is also entering the portal. Donovan and I talked about how huge it is that Gwabena Asamoah and Tyler Needham are coming back because we're losing a lot of our offensive line. We're getting a new offensive line coach. And, it seems like with Asamoah and Needham, we kind of came to the conclusion that you can really determine next year with our new quarterback, who we're going to get into in a second, if he is quarterback 1, plays similarly to Ethan, you can kind of determine if Jim Turner is an upgrade to Pat Flaherty or not. So, losing Taj White is not great, but our offensive line was a little underperforming at in certain games. So it's an area that we need desperately to improve upon, but this is the perfect opportunity to do so.
Well, I think Asamoah and Needham coming back is really, really important. I think if Taj White had stayed, that would have been, ideal. But we do have a strong foundation on the offensive line. But, one thing that I think should really be talked about right now is Rutgers just landed the best possible transfer it could land that could make a game-changing difference for their season next year. I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yep.
Initials are DL.
So this is the sign this is the sign that we're transferring, no pun intended, over to who we have gotten, and no one better to start off with than quarterback Dylan Lonergan.
Former Alabama commit Dylan Lonergan, who got rave reviews from the coaching staff at Alabama, then transfers to Boston College and plays for Bill O'Brien. Now coming to Rutgers, former four-star quarterback Dylan Lonergan. This could be a game changer for Rutgers if Lonergan performs and has the talent as advertised, and really could create the kind of offense with KJ returning, Antoine returning, and a deep receiving core, and of course Asamoah and Needham on the offensive line. With Lonergan's talent level, we could have a very formidable quarterback and offense in the Big Ten. What do you guys think?
I'm happy it's not Aiden Childs, because last week we were talking about potentially Aiden Childs being here. I'll take Dylan Lonergan over Aiden Childs, because at the end of the day, Lonergan, not only that he was a Saban recruit, he wasn't just a recruit at Alabama. He was a Saban recruit. And there's a difference right now that we've seen just with Alabama, because Alabama has had a lot of transfers just this last weekend as well. A lot of their guys that were DeBoer guys. Being able to be a Saban guy, going to Bill O'Brien coached Boston College. Bill O'Brien, at the end of the day, he is good with quarterbacks. He was able to get Tommy Castellanos in a situation at Florida State where for the first 3 games, a lot of people thought, oh, man, Tommy Castellano, there's something there with him. And now with Lonergan being able to be on this team, his first 2 years at BC being better than what Ethan had at Minnesota, a 70% completion percentage guy, running the same style as offense at that. Ethan was a 65% completion percentage guy running our offense for 2 years. Lonergan doing that with Bill O'Brien with a lesser amount of talent at Boston College being 70% is very, very impressive. And now adding this offensive power, it does make this team look like, okay, we're going to be bowl eligible. He's a bowl eligible QB.
Yeah, and I have a little story about this because I follow Alabama football. 2 years ago, there was a quarterback battle at Alabama between Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson. What people don't realize is that the coaching staff actually told Saban they think Lonergan should be QB1 over Milroe and Simpson. And as the report goes, Saban said no because he was a freshman at the time. But that's how good he is. Wow. And this is going to lead to a very spirited quarterback battle. Yeah, and that report was verified.
What the hell happened? Why is this Indiana stuff keep happening, man? Who's hacking our stream?
They're still trying to steal our Sean.
Oh, my goodness. This is unreal.
I lived in Indiana for 4 years. Great respect for the Indiana folks. And I will say, I never thought I'd say this, but I think Indiana's winning the national championship.
They might win this one and the next one just with how they're recruiting.
Hold on.
Right. And having said that, though, the quarterback competition in the spring is going to be a very fierce one. And this is not to take anything away from A.J. Serace. He performed admirably in the spring game, throwing for over 250 yards against Rutgers' starting defense at times. So I think it's going to be good for Rutgers, good for competition, and elevate the quality of the offense.
Yes, and for Serace, this is going to be very do or die for him. I feel like now going into the spring, this puts pressure on him in the spring. When we were talking about the possibility of Aiden Childs or me, for example, I was trying to say Rutgers should go after Rocco Becht, and the fact that he's going to Penn State right now shows that we weren't too far away from potentially getting him. So it is what it is.
It just makes too much sense for Rocco though, leaving to follow your coach, and it just feels like a good fit. I'm kind of mad because that feels like a better fit than what we would have had with him.
But
I know that like we have a lot of really solid wide receiver options, but damn, that's a very scary Penn State team that we're gonna have to face next year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in Happy Valley. One question I have for you guys, and this has been on my mind since I heard about Lonergan. Any chance Saray enters the portal?
I
Yeah.
would, yeah, because right now there's a good possibility that Longren is going to be that starter coming spring. Like the first couple of spring practices, there's a possibility that Longren can take the starting QB spot and never give it back. And the thing is, Longren has 2 years left. Every QB that we were talking about outside of Gabe saying that they should go out to Drew Westermaker were guys that were having 1 year left of eligibility. And Sarace potentially could be okay, I can sit down
But
one
you
more
know
year.
why?
I can go my senior year. But
You know
right
why
now,
AJ shouldn't transfer?
no. He
No.
has to. I feel like he should.
I'm saying you know why he shouldn't, because this is not an Ethan AJ situation. There is wiggle room. If Dylan doesn't perform well next year, you bet your ass that AJ is going to be playing. And, vice versa. This is not a job that Dylan has won yet, but it's a damn good quarterback to have, and I think he would be favored. And yes, Jason, correct. There's no spring portal. So whoever is here after January 18th, I believe, is that correct? 18th. Whoever's here after the 18th, they're still going to be here. So every day that players are still here is good. And look, I'm just happy that we got a competent quarterback that is proven, just like Ethan. And Adam, I didn't know that story. I was actually not critical, but I was a little concerned over his not his stints per se, but the fact that we didn't go after someone a little bigger.
Yeah, well, I mean, that story, from everything that I know about it, is true. And so for the coaching staff to tell Saban that Lonergan should be the starting quarterback over Milroe and Simpson
as a freshman,
says something about his talent level. Now, at the very least, this gives us depth at the quarterback position.
Yeah,
what it does do
too,
it creates competition, and I think that whoever wins the starting job is going to be a formidable quarterback to complement an offense that has a great wide receiving core, and what I think is going to be one of the best running backs in the country coming back, and Antoine Raymond backed by Jashawn Benjamin.
And also, I wanted to ask you, Gabe, real fast before we go on to the next.
I still got stuff on the order. For this, so we're good.
I wanted to say that, Longren hasn't won the job yet, but don't you feel like he has, I would say, a lead, or does he have the advantage right now going into spring?
Yes, because he has experience playing every game.
But Sarace has a better idea of the offense so far. That's why I'm just saying, like, yes, Sarace hasn't really played that many meaningful snaps or game snaps, but at this part of his career, he should have a good understanding of the playbook and just how the offense is ran compared to a guy going from one program to the next program, despite them still trying to run similar offenses.
I think that Shiano and whoever else said, Shioraka said, you're going into training camp as quarterback one. I think that was also a sales pitch to Dylan. And it's not like this is, a do or die 2-man battle too. We have Xavier Stern coming in, he's freshman next year, so he's not going to be starting, but highly touted for sure out of Germantown Academy in Pennsylvania, known for his strong arm and athleticism, a little bit of a dual threat quarterback. So if we don't like what we see out of them, if it's garbage time, or insert Xavier Stern too, get him in the mix.
Yeah, and I got to give a lot of credit to Rutgers for the acquisitions they've made, and getting this type of player from Boston College, originally an Alabama commit, speaks to what Rutgers is able to recruit. Because I think we also have an offensive lineman who Georgia was going after pretty hard, who picked Rutgers, Jared Smith. So, getting this type of talent it bodes well for Rutgers, and I think the offense possibly could be just as good as the offense last year, if not better, if Lonergan pans out. Now, no disrespect to AJ Sarace. It should be a competition. And if he wins it, he should get the job. But the fact that you have competition at this level is a really good thing for the Scarlet Knights.
And
Yeah,
also
they have a competition this early.
Yeah,
exactly. And by the way, Bo Masco is ranked the 3rd best cornerback, not 5th, only behind Sean Lee Jr. out of Pitt and Smith Snowden out of Utah.
Out of Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and that's why I was looking at, because the top 2 recruits right now in the portal is John Tiz Williams. He's going to USC. Jay Crawford going to Ole Miss. And outside of that, there is arguably, him and Sean Lee have the same composite grade right now. So they're seeing that Bo Masco, after the season that he had, I'm not even saying that to say that as a negative, but that's just saying that he's the best out of what he just did compared to what he can do. So that's why when I was talking about early with Ohio State, it's such a low risk, high reward move.
For sure. And another guy, okay, so we talked about Dylan Lonergan, and, I'm happy that we have a competent, proven quarterback.
Gabe, can I ask you a question? Both of you a question?
Yes,
Do
sir.
you think that KJ Duff's decision to return was influenced by the fact that Lonergan is coming?
No, sorry. I thought you were going to say his decision to return influenced Dylan's decision, sort of the opposite of that.
Actually, I'll ask both questions. Do you think, and vice versa?
This is very which came first, and I truly believe it was I feel like the staff might have told him that they're going to get a QB. Because Duff going into this year thinking that his QB might be AJ Sarace, and that's potentially a no-doubter without the competition, I don't think he comes back. I feel like the opportunity of him having a QB that's played on the field so far in game might have been something that really sold him over, especially having a guy like what Adam said, having the type of game readiness day one, because being able to be a true freshman and being able to start or have the opportunity to start in the SEC is a huge just I would say accolade that you could put on your resume being in the portal.
Here is my hot prediction. My theory. My theory is that when they were talking to KJ Duff, he asked them, who is quarterback 1 next year? And I believe if they said AJ Sarace, he was going to say he's gone. Not because AJ Sarace is bad by any means, or that he's not ready. He could be ready. And I don't think that KJ would have a problem with that. More so, would there be competition and would there be room to improve at quarterback? Because if AJ Sarace is quarterback 1, it means that he improved. So I think that was sort of the idea that KJ had. And if I'm wrong, so be it. But I think that if I were KJ, that would be my question.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Lonergan last year for the Boston College Eagles threw for over 2,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And one thing that stands out is his game on November 15th against Georgia Tech, where he went 26 of 40 for 362 yards with 2 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Against Georgia Tech?
Against Georgia Tech. Yes.
Oh, yeah, that was the game where they were hosting Georgia Tech at home. I remember that game.
And SMU, when they played SMU, 25 of 37 for 232 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So he's played well against some stiff competition. That bodes well.
Playing well, and not only that, I would say being able to have a very positive touchdown to interception ratio, despite your team only winning 2 games, says a lot, because he's throwing the ball a lot. A lot of these games that Boston College played last year, they were playing from behind, and you got to be able to be. That's impressive to still have that much efficiency throwing the ball, despite you having to take unnecessary risks just to get back into the game.
Let me ask you this: what was his worst game?
His worst game. Let's see. So
oftentimes that's how you can judge a quarterback.
That's a good question.
Oh, Notre Dame 5 for 80, 29 yards. But he still threw for 62% completion.
And it's Notre Dame. Not that that's a great excuse, because you're going to be playing the best of the best if you're in the ACC, if you're in the Big Ten. But I don't know. He doesn't have the same weapons at Boston College as he would at Rutgers.
So against Clemson on October 11th, he was 12 of 19 for 117 yards, for a 63.2% completion percentage. Now,
I don't mind these. These aren't terrible for worst games
against pretty good
like
competition.
Ethan had worst games last year.
Yeah, I would say this though: the one concerning statistic about Lonergan is that his average yards per pass is fairly low. Against Georgia Tech, it was 9.1. SMU,
I can't hold that against him. My bad. But I can't hold that against him, knowing that for the most part he was getting sacked heavily last season. He was one of the more pressurized quarterbacks in the ACC at Boston College. So I truly see that's why his yards per attempt is low, because for the most part last season he was throwing checkdowns. So him potentially, that's why I'm saying for all Rutgers, if they're able to bolster their offensive line this offseason in the portal, you're going to get a Dylan Longren that a lot of people might haven't seen since his fall camp at Alabama. Because right now he's going to have better weapons than he had at Boston College. He's going to have a better coach than what he had at Boston College, because Greg Schiano, at least on the college level, I would put him over Bill O'Brien. And he's going to potentially have a better offensive line. Yes, the competition is going to be higher, but he's played against guys already at Alabama, and Alabama's 2s and 3s are guys that he's most likely going to play this season in this schedule. Yeah, a lot of those guys might have hit the portal as well.
I mean, when you combine that with, Asamoah Needham coming back, KJ and Antoine coming back, I think, and we got also an edge rusher from Toledo coming in.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get into
that. Malachi Davis.
Yeah. I'm excited now for next year, guys. And we're going to have the most exciting year in a long time, because we got Michigan, we got USC, Indiana coming to SHI Stadium. And there's reason to be positive with these acquisitions.
Yeah, we got another guy who I want to talk about, and Donovan's very high on him, Zamir Dawood, Nova defensive back. He had 2 interceptions last year, 43 tackles, 11 pass deflections, which are crazy numbers for a corner. And by the way, seems like a very nice guy. Gave us a follow on Instagram and X. Shout out to you, Zamir. If you ever want to come on the show, we'd love to have you. I'm very happy with the addition of him, and I do believe that he'll be a starter next year.
Yes, and as a person who played against Villanova 2 years ago, and we played against Dawood, he's a guy that can lock down a part of the field. He can lock down a half of the field. He's showed that throughout the playoffs this year with Villanova. The Tarleton State game, the number 1 receiver for Tarleton State was a top 10 receiver. Dawood completely locked him down. He only got 2 receptions that game on 5 targets. The only game that Dawood really got, I would say, didn't have the upper hand against was in the semifinal game that they hosted at home against Illinois State. And that's just because Daniel Sobkowitz, despite him going into the draft, hands down was the best FCS wide receiver that the FCS has seen in a couple of years. And that's the only downside that I have with Dawood, is because he's going to play up in the Big Ten at least. Like Adam just said, we're going to play against Michigan. We're playing USC at home. We're playing Penn State on the road. We're playing Indiana at home. All these teams are going to have wide receivers with the same type of archetype as Daniel Sobkowitz, a taller guy that can able to run crisp routes and is able to turn 50-50 balls into 70-30 balls. And the thing is, on the positive for Dawood, is he's good in man coverage in the fact that he's able to jam a receiver in the first 5. He's a hands-on guy, but he doesn't really get that many penalties. And for the FCS, they do call a lot.
And Villanova is a great program. People don't realize Villanova
great defensive program as well.
Absolutely. And Jason, though, as far as your comment goes, all I have to say is this: circumstances have changed since last week. With these acquisitions, hey, there's reason to be positive. That wasn't the case last week. If you want to sanction me, it can only be for the nap.
Yeah, it's funny. I was looking, and absolutely, by the way, but I was looking, I send a bunch of clips for each show to my email, and I have like a schedule posting all of them. And today's scheduled post was Adam saying that we should leave the Big Ten. And I'm like, you know what? We probably shouldn't post that if we're just getting all these acquisitions now. I don't think that would look too good.
Well, you know what? Rutgers should leave the Big Ten. If
we should not.
Hold on a second. If Rutgers did not get players with the requisite talent level to compete against the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Oregons, the Indianas, the Penn States, then yeah, You know what? We should consider leaving the Big Ten, but I'm encouraged by these acquisitions. And hey, I'm going to change my opinion when the facts.
And a lot of them came here to play in the Big Ten.
Well, they'll have that chance next year.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think that our conference sort of benefited us in the transfer portal more than it sabotaged.
I'm not going to be sanctioned. Maybe for the NAP.
I truly believe that the pickup of Dawood is going to be one that's going to be underlined, and like a lot of people are going to see that later on in the year because he's the fact that he did as well as he was as a corner, despite yes, he only had 2 interceptions on the year, but nobody was throwing the ball in his direction.
And 2 interceptions in the year isn't even
bad. If you look at every playoff game, especially this FCS postseason run for Villanova, the first round, no one threw the ball in his direction. In the second round against Lehigh wasn't able to be efficient throwing to the ball on the right side because he's a quarterback one, and he's always lined up to the right hash of the ball. He's always lined up there. Or
so
he's guarding. He always follows the number one.
Are you saying he could be our DPOY next year?
I could see it. It's just depending on how well he's able to adjust to the speed of Big Ten. Going from the CAA, despite yes, the CAA is one of the better conferences in the FCS. There's still a talent gap between the CAA and the Big Ten. If he's able to show that he not only has that talent, because he has the physical traits, it just really depends on if he's smart enough to really handle guarding up against receivers in the Big Ten, because it's going to come down to that.
Well, I think the biggest tell will be the first 3 non-conference games. If he shows flaws in those games, I'd be concerned. But if he plays lights out like he did in the FCS, it's nothing but encouragement. I think that is, I mean, sort of like how we saw last year, the first 3 games, the non-conference games, they were foreshadowing the rest of the year. Our offense looked sick. Our defense struggled. And we won the games, but you could tell that against Big Ten competition, we weren't going to play as well, and we would lose a lot of those games. So I think that the same can be said about our new players coming in, because our transfers from last year, they didn't gel well. But our transfers this year, I don't think it's all about firepower. It seems like it's about fit.
I feel like they're going for what fits more than a big name.
Like
last year, they went after a big name.
We talked about Dawood, and now I'm going to transfer over to Malachi Davis, the Toledo edge. I mean, these aren't crazy names, but Davis had 35 tackles last year, and he had 5.5 sacks, which guess what is a half sack less than our entire front 4 had last year.
9.5 tackle for loss, which would have led the team.
Toledo is another program.
Toledo's a good program.
Toledo is a good program, and that's a good acquisition. But, when we talk about all this in terms of the schedule that we have next year, this year we talked a lot about how the Iowa game was that game where we get over the hump if we win. Next year, I believe the 4th game of the season is going to be at Malik Washington and Maryland, and that I think is going to be a critical game.
I would say that's the litmus test game for the conference, but for the non-conference games, I'm looking at the BC game at Cherry Hill. I think that's going to be week 2 or week 3. It's right around I think they play Howard right after, but I'm looking at that Boston College game. That's going to be the game to see how a lot of these MAC schools / FCS guys that are coming here in the portal, how they're going to bid well against FBS type of bodies.
And it seems like that could be sort of the Ohio type of matchup from last year, where people say, oh, Rutgers by 30, and then all of a sudden it looks like it could be a trap game. So I'm looking out for that too. And Boston College plays gritty too. I've noticed that. I mean,
because their first game of the year is against UMass, and that's the Rutgers by 30 game. That's the Rutgers by 60.
It should be that should be the Norfolk State game or the Miami of Ohio game.
That's the Miami of Ohio game. The Norfolk State game is Howard.
Yeah. One question I have for you guys is when we talk about the edge rusher from Toledo.
Yeah.
Eric O'Neill came from James Madison, didn't perform as well as we had hoped, and, wish him all the best, of course. Do you have the same concerns about, that acquisition panning out the same way?
I'm saying no, because he is not going to have the same pressure Eric O'Neill had. He's not going to get double teamed every play. And Eric O'Neill had a great second half of the year. He was very civilian-esque for the first half, but he finally turned it on at the end of the year. But with Malachi Davis, he's not going to come in and be the anchor of our defense. What he's going to be is a solid addition. And he's, like I said, he's not going to get double teamed. He's going to find his way past the offensive linemen. He's going to swim his way past them sometimes, I should say. Shout out to my ball knowledge on that one. That's the offensive line in the modified football coming out of me. Not to flex or anything. But no, I think that Malachi Davis, yeah, he's going to come in and he's going to I think he's going to start. And he is going to have a season similar to Eric O'Neal, sure. But I don't think that's a bad thing because he's not going to have the same pressure and he's not going to be on everyone's watch lists coming into the year.
I see Davis having some upside because not only the fact that he's listed at 255, but for most of the season last year, he was playing around 265, 270.
And he's on the edge.
Eric O'Neal, he was listed at 250. He was playing at 255, 260 most of the year at edge. And the thing is, Davis, he's more of a guy that can stop the run. You can see it with how 9.5 tackle for losses and the amount of tackles that he has as an edge rusher. He's able to really control the line of scrimmage, and that's a part of Eric O'Neal's game that's still developing still. Yes, he did show some bright spots at LIU stopping the run, but his time at James Madison was primarily known as an edge rusher. And that's a guy that can pin his ear back on passing downs and get to the quarterback. While Davis, he's more of all around that. Yes, he can get sacks. He has 5 on the season, but he's more of a guy that still he's able to set the edge in the run game. And for Rutgers, they need somebody to be able to be an edge setter more than an edge rusher.
Well, Donovan, let me ask you this, and Gabe too. Do you think that O'Neal, I think he was 6'3", and you said playing at 255, do you think he would have had better success if he was on the interior defensive line instead of at edge?
No,
that would have been the
no.
No, if you're
when you're in the Big Ten, if you're going to be an interior defensive lineman, you got to be at least 290.
If you're 250 at the defensive front, your whole strength is your speed and your agility. You're not able to handle a one-on-one, let alone a double team if you're at 250.
That's my point, though. I mean, and maybe that was that wouldn't have worked either, but I didn't think he was fast enough to set the edge, and I think that you saw that throughout the season. And I'm just wondering, is there any other place he could have played that may have maximized his talent more effectively?
If you wanted to, you could have him as a guy that he plays close to the line as a linebacker, and he's a rusher on passing downs, kind of like how Arvell Reese was for Ohio State this year. Not comparing the two, on that type of level, but I'm saying the way that Arvell Reese was playing his position of linebacker / edge rusher, you could try to have O'Neal like that because O'Neal works best as close to the line as possible and just being able to set up a lot of his pass rushing arsenal. While for Davis, from a lot of his tape on Toledo, he's a guy that he has the strength. He's a power rusher for the lack of terms. Like he's the premier definition of a guy that has more power than speed, and you can see that on the way that he's able to defend the run.
And that's what we needed last year. That's what you were stressing all year, Adam, was beef. He's got that.
Beef?
By the way,
he's most likely, I truly believe the way that the strength coaches are going to have him at Rutgers, he potentially is going to play around 265 to 270 because he just watching Toledo last year, he didn't look 255.
And I think he'll get 3 or 4 sacks, which, by the way, would be a little over half of the amount of sacks our front four had last year.
Yeah, and when I look at these players, it's not just speed and size. What I really focus on is explosiveness, and quickness. And I think those are critical, especially for an edge rusher.
I mean, he's going to pressure the quarterback. That's what's going to be the most important thing. I
mean, better get to the quarterback.
I'm more worried about if he's able to stop the run because Rutgers was more gashed because the secondary for the most part, they were covering well. And it's just that the fact that Rutgers was giving up 4 yards of carry, that hurts you a lot of your passing defense because teams can just run play action on you and just be able to pick you apart in that way because you don't know how to defend it.
Yeah.
If Rutgers is able to have Davis continue, I wouldn't say have 9.5 tackles for losses, but if he's able to bring at least 6 or 7.5 tackles for losses next season, and be able to be more of an edge setter and try to get another guy on the edge, potentially Collier in year 2. I see Collier being that primary pass rusher guy, while Davis can be that run edge setter that can still provide sacks.
We need Collier out there. I've been stressing that for the past year.
And we need containment. How many times this year did opposing offenses totally break containment? It was a real problem.
Countless amounts.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing. With Eric O'Neal last year, we stressed that he wasn't pressuring the quarterback enough, but then he finally was pressuring the quarterback. And outside of the Penn State game, I would say that our defense did improve the second half of the year.
Illinois,
what I see from Malachi Davis is the same thing. He's not going to get a million sacks, but he's going to be pressuring the quarterback. And I think that's going to make a difference, not as the guy, but as a guy that can have some big plays that can change the momentum.
That is a great point. A point that most people don't recognize, which is it really doesn't matter how many sacks you have. What matters is, are you disrupting the quarterback's timing? And so I think you're right about that. And if he can do that, we're going to be successful.
Yeah, and
I would say sacks matter, and just on the part of just being able to, like you said, pressuring the quarterback. But it matters just how often you're able to get there, because guys that are able to get sacks are guys that are able to rush the quarterback underneath 3 seconds. You got to be a 3.5 seconds or less type of guy, 3.5 seconds or less type of edge rusher. And for Rutgers, they don't need that number one guy. They need to be able to have by committee, because when Rutgers was at its success 2 years ago, when they got to the Guarantee Rate Bowl, a lot of it was just a general D-line by committee, being able to have a lot of guys do their job, a lot of role player guys be able to do their job. And now adding Davis, be able to be that guy that can set the edge and letting be able to have Collier blossom and giving him that opportunity to not have to do too much and just let him focus on being able to go after the quarterback. You're setting up your defensive line for success. And now you still have guys that you still have D tackles, not only young D tackles that you signed last year, but guys that you can still go after in the portal to make a huge splash on it and boost up your front seven.
So here's the thing. With Collier, I believe he didn't play a snap last year. Do you think that he's going to become an instant impact player next year, or is he going to be in when the game doesn't matter? Because I want to see.
I truly feel like this spring going into the summer, you got to be able to you got a 4-star for a reason. You got to be able to use him.
Yep, and he reclassified.
He's a 6'7" edge rusher that was going to go to Penn State before everything went down.
And he reclassified. Like, that's the thing, is he reclassified, but he didn't play. He could have redshirted.
Yeah, that's why I feel like this year was just him growing and getting used to the speed of the game, getting strong enough. Next year, you got to be able to give him rope and say that he's not a freshman anymore.
He was a top 10, I believe, number 6 overall recruit in the class of 2026, and then reclassified.
I think that's a hard question to answer, because if he was good enough to play last year, he would have played. And I think that the coaches probably thought he needed more development. So I'm guessing that it depends on where in his development, what stage of development he's at. And if he's good enough, I do trust in the coaches that he will play. And I hope that's the case, because it seems just from looking at his history that he's a very talented player. But again, you got to give credit to Coach Schiano for these acquisitions. And if Collier steps up, you're going to be looking at an improved defense to go along with an offense that potentially could be led by a former Alabama recruit who coaches thought should be the starting quarterback 2 years ago.
My final thing on Collier is just that this year, him reclassifying, because a lot of players do that. They come into school a year early. Quinn Ewers did it. I think Joe Burrow did it as well. Guys that come in a year early just so they can get their body and their minds right for college football. Because with Collier, he was too skinny to play last year. He was 6'7", but he was 6'7", but he was still, I think, at the time, 238 to 240 pounds. Most likely during this time.
Up to 230, insinuating that he was less than 230 last year.
So he was skinny.
Yeah.
He reminded me.
Jason saying he was barely
put some weight on him. Him being able to get some weight on him is the biggest positive going into this spring cycle. And now you're going to see does that weight that he added on not only enhance his skills, but is he strong enough in the playbook or strong enough in his instincts and his IQ and his learning from last year and watching all that tape to take that onto the field because you invested in him coming in a year early just so you can use him this year.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Him coming in 2025 was a plan for 2026. It wasn't for last year.
That's a really good point. And one thing, Wadiq Collier kind of reminds me a little bit of former Bergen Catholic star Javante Jean-Baptiste, who went to Ohio State, and he was an edge rusher. When he went to Ohio State, he was 6'6" and about 225, and it took him about 2 years to put on the kind of weight necessary to play meaningful snaps. And if Collier, puts on, I would say, 15 to 20 pounds and, maintains that speed, you're going to have a serious, a formidable edge rusher for Rutgers that's going to make that defense substantially better than last year.
I truly feel like he has all the intangibles to be a star player for Rutgers, and it's just now knowing how Shiano is, he doesn't like to start freshmen, but if he gives you a shot and you impress him as a freshman, you're going to get more time. Like I see Mashoud, like we talked about Mashoud Giwa earlier, I can see him getting more time next year due to how well he plays in the spring this year. Same way with D. Collier.
So this is going to sound crazy, but who Wadiq Collier reminds me of is Abdul Carter, not in terms of the peak, but in terms of how he plays and the fact that, hey, they both went to school in Philadelphia too. But I really think that he's got the speed, the elusiveness. It's just the strength that's lacking right now. And he's definitely a lot quicker and more athletic now than he was last year coming in. But his speed to the quarterback in high school, it's why he was a top 10 prospect in all of Pennsylvania. And you may think like, who cares? There's 50 states, but Pennsylvania is one of them football states.
Pennsylvania is a football
powerhouse.
Pennsylvania is, adjacent to a California, a Texas, a Louisiana. Like it's up there.
I would say it's top 5 when it comes to football states, when it comes to high school, because the top 3, in whatever order you want to put it in, is Florida,
Texas, California, modern day in California, IMG.
Why the 5, you can say Ohio, and 5 being potentially Pennsylvania, in whatever order.
Why the hell is New York not up there, man? What are we doing wrong?
New York's more of a basketball. More basketball. And for the most part, a lot of the football players in New York, they typically go to Jersey.
Pennsylvania has great a great recruiting ground. Pennsylvania is definitely top 5 in terms of skill level, but I think it's behind Texas, Florida, and California, but not far behind.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so anyways, there's one more commit to talk about. Not really for a long time, unfortunately. He hasn't had too much of an impact yet in college football, but he's only coming off his freshman year. Cam Anthony, Cam with a K, by the way, out of Ball State, tight end. He's a freshman. When he did play, he was all right. He, I believe, had a catch in 6 consecutive games as a freshman. 7 catches on the year for 117, 2 touchdowns. Longest catch was 40 yards. But I think that he's got a good build for college football. And I could see him being tight end 2 or 3. Definitely not tight end 1 right now. And I think that's a position that we're still lacking right now in the portal. I mean,
well, I could see being an upgrade to Kenny Fletcher.
You think he could be an upgrade? Kenny Fletcher was pretty solid.
Kenny Fletcher in the opportunities that he had, yeah, but he didn't really get that many catches. But I think isn't he graduating this year, or is he coming back?
Kenny Fletcher, he's done, yeah. So he's not going to get drafted, but I made the whole argument that he is an NFL type of prototype tight end.
Yeah, Ball State is one of those programs. Ball State's in Indiana, central Indiana, a little bit north of that. Nice little campus there. David Letterman's alma mater.
Yeah.
Ball State's not a bad program, and they've upset a few FBS teams in recent memory. So I think that ultimately what I'm looking at from him is what's the raw stats in this guy? What's his 40 time? What's his size, and is he going to be able to get separation in the Big Ten?
Let me look into that real quick. But yeah, that's it for.
I'm just interested to see how well he's going to be for this Rutgers offense, because like Fletcher, he's a good run blocker as well as a tight end. So being able to have that run blocking, catching abilities is going to be very useful for a Rutgers team that's most likely going to live in that RPO world where Fletcher was able to thrive in when he had those opportunities. Last year, he had 461 snaps that were strictly run blocking. So he's used to blocking. He's used to being able to be a primary factor in helping the running game. So that's a big reason why I liked why Shiano and Rutgers was able to make this pickup, because you need to be able, if you're going to build this offense around KJ Duff, Antoine Raymond, you need to be able to have tight ends that can block.
You know, I didn't know that, and I think the scouts have really done their homework on Cam Anthony, because those numbers don't land you a job at the Big Ten. What does land you a job at the Big Ten is extensive scouting, recruiting, and watching film. And so he's done enough to earn a spot with Rutgers. I don't think it's tight end 1, definitely not this year, but down the line, I mean, usually you get 2-year commitments out of guys. And I think that in 2027, he could be our tight end 1 if he works hard enough. And
who do you see as the tight end 1 this year?
He'll get some playing time this year.
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely critical for Rutgers to have a tight end that can complement the offense in the passing game, kind of like a Josh Cuevas at Alabama. It adds a dimension to the offense that Rutgers really hasn't had, and I think would really, add to and enhance the offense, especially with the teams that are coming in this year. We don't just need balance on offense. We need a lot of weapons, and we need a tight end that's going to be able to come in there and on third downs, be a weapon for us in the passing game.
And by the way, shout out to Arnav Sarkar from On the Banks. We had him on the show once. I've been on his show a few times. He points out that Cam Anthony caught a game-winning 29-yard touchdown pass to lift them past Kent State this year. So
there you go.
There you go. He caught a game-winning touchdown pass against an FBS program. So he's done it.
And I cannot stress enough, and I know I sound like a broken record, but the addition of Dylan Lonergan is a game changer. And it could be that, Rutgers, I could see them potentially upsetting a Michigan, potentially upsetting, dare I say, a USC, and certainly a Nebraska. And so I think that, 1 week can make a huge difference in college football. And my opinion of Rutgers and their prospects for next year has changed based on the great additions that have been made. And I give credit to Coach Shiano and his staff.
So is being the year?
If we're looking at it from that standpoint, yeah, I agree with you there, Adam. But I just feel like right now, if we're going to give it a grade, what would you give it?
A grade in terms of acquisitions?
Yes, just the overall start to this transfer portal season for Rutgers.
Who we've lost, who has stayed, yeah.
If I had to grade it right now, I would give it a B+.
You know what I'm giving it? I'm giving it. Oh, okay. So before we signed anyone, I would have given it a freaking A because of keeping KJ Duff and Antoine Raymond. I'm happy with who we've signed. None of the players we've signed have had bad tenures, but I'll concur with the B+ because we haven't signed, outside of quarterback Dylan Lonergan, any proven FBS game changers in a Power 4 conference. And that's what I'm looking for, is at least 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah, and I think some of them have great upside. And Jason, this comment I have to speak to because I graduated from USC in 1997. So I've listened to that Trojan marching band for many years. And it it's a fantastic, fantastic band. And it is gonna be surreal seeing my alma mater at SHI Stadium with Lincoln Riley at the helm. And, USC is going to be formidable and certainly a big challenge for us. I don't necessarily expect a win, but I think that we're going to be more competitive than we were last year. And is a 7-win season within the realm of possibilities? Most certainly. Is an 8-win season within the realm of possibility? Probably on the outer edge, but not inconceivable. And that's what 1 week of acquisitions, particularly of Lonergan, and hopefully the development of Collier, I think that's going to make a difference. So we have reason to be positive.
We also didn't know that KJ Duff and Antoine Raymond were coming back. I think that both of us almost assumed they weren't coming back.
But all 3 of us were thinking they were all going to go into the portal. I thought Raymond was going to come back, but all 3 of us honestly thought Duff was gone. So him coming back was major.
I thought that Raymond was going to come back until he posted the cryptic tweet. And then I thought he was signaling he was on his way out. I thought KJ Duff was on his way out because when the news got posted that Ian Strong was gone, KJ was like in the comments saying, let's go, which obviously is understandable because you know that your friend is getting the bag. But usually there's some sort of underlying tone when you haven't made your decision yet. Well, maybe I was just reading into it too much.
You never know what's going on behind the scenes. That's why when we comment on these things, we don't have the benefit of knowing what's going on inside the building. But I do think there's some relationship between Duff staying and Lonergan's acquisition.
Yeah, I totally agree that as well.
I mean, when you're a quarterback, you look at who your wide receiver one's going to be.
Yeah.
And since both of y'all gave your grades, I'm giving it a B. Primarily because there's just so much more work that has to be done. I like the Lonergan pickup at QB, and I'm just excited for seeing how the spring game comes along and how well he does in the spring game and how well he's going to do during fall camp, because I truly see him as the potential day one starter and to raise the backup. But this team still has some holes in the secondary and has some holes primarily on that offensive line. Like, yes, you were able to get the Wood, but you still are looking at who's going to play safety. Right now, Jet Elot is gone.
Is Kaj Sanders coming back? I think he could be, right? Isn't Kaj Sanders a junior? And also, he hasn't said he's entering the portal. Oh, he's a sophomore. So Kaj Sanders is the one guy at safety that seems like a lock. Well, not a lock, knock on wood.
You gotta be able to get one more safety. The only position that's set on the defense right now, I would say primarily is linebacker. But as Jason O said, there's a chance that our Rutgers goes after one of UCLA's guys in the portal. But they have to get someone on that offensive line. If they're able to bolster that offensive line up, if we're able to get some splashes, I don't think we're going to get the biggest name out the portal on offensive line, but they got to get somebody.
Well,
if they're able to get a 3-star, it's major.
And also, selfishly, the reason why I have it as a B+ and not an A or an A+ like I had it a few days ago is because now look, Dylan Lonergan, I have no doubt could be great for us. But my dream land, Drew Mestemaker, who we thought there was no chance because he would go to a top-notch school like an Indiana or an LSU, whatever, he went to Oklahoma State. Now, you can argue it's because it's more local to him, but what I'm saying is that means we could have possibly entered a bidding war for the number one statistical quarterback in college football last year. And that's why I'm selfishly giving it a B or a B+, is because we weren't even in the rumor mill.
Yeah, that's a good point. And look, when you talk about the offensive line, I keep coming back to Jared Smith, 6'5", 330. He's going to be a freshman, but this guy...
Yeah, possible, man. It's possible.
I mean, this guy can be an impact player immediately, and that's what we're going to need if we're going to compete against the USC.
330. You said 330 as an incoming freshman?
That's right.
That's
6'5".
That's a big
dude. Throw him on the line, man. Like I know that Shiano doesn't like playing freshmen. Make an exception. Give him a shot.
And that's not 6'5", 330 pounds of that's 6'5", 330 pounds of lean muscle.
That ain't baby fat.
not fat. We're talking about, and he was a highly touted. Georgia wanted him.
Auburn, Georgia Tech.
That's right. So I mean,
or no, sorry, Georgia. I think it was Georgia, Alabama, Georgia Tech.
And Auburn was in the mix too.
Auburn. Yeah, I remember we were in the top 5, and everyone was like, "How did Rutgers sneak into that?" Like there was like this one meme of like a dog looking scary or something, and the caption says, "Bro tried sneaking in." And I remember someone posted that under his top 5 list, and I was thinking the opposite. I was thinking the fact that we're in a top 5 with these other schools means there's something appealing about us that strikes to Jared Smith. And therefore, I think that we actually have the advantage, because if he was going to rule us out because, same old Rutgers, he would have done so way before top 5.
Yeah, and you know what? To be successful, for Rutgers to be successful, they're going to need freshmen who can be impact players from the start, because we don't necessarily have the depth that other Big Ten schools have. Now, as far as Mestemaker goes, all I'll say about is this. I think Rutgers could have gotten Mestemaker if they paid him the money that would have outbid any other team. I suspect now that Lonergan is coming, that they made a decision to allocate their resources to another quarterback. But
Yeah,
he could have gotten him if they really wanted him. But
That's
I think they
that's
wanted.
the thing. Oklahoma State gave him a lot of money that if Rutgers did that, it would have halted the rest of the recruiting in this portal.
Yeah,
So do you think are all these guys getting paid that we're bringing
Yeah.
in?
Yes.
You don't think there's any of the guys that are just coming on for like a free scholarship?
No, I think what they did was I think that they did a player evaluation and they looked at Mestamaker and they looked at Lonergan and thought he presented a better upside.
Is Cam Anthony getting paid?
I'm sure. I would suspect
7 catches.
I see like he could just be potentially getting here on a scholarship and just transferring just to transfer. But the bigger name guys that we've talked about so far, like I could see potentially Malik Davis getting paid. I could potentially see Dove getting paid to come back.
Zamir's getting
Antoine getting paid to come back.
I'm not trying to pocket watch. It's more from an NIL standpoint.
Yeah,
Duff is getting paid 7 figures. I would bet on it.
For sure.
I would bet he's getting probably anywhere between 1 and 2 million.
See, that's why I don't like. That's the one downside about talking NIL is it seems like we're pocket watching, but in reality, we're not talking about their money. We're talking about the budget that the NIL portal or the NIL budget is.
It's not pocket watching if you're focusing more on how the team is moving with their NIL budget than looking specifically at how much a player is making in NIL.
Yeah.
And look, Rutgers knows.
And I want to get across.
Now that we have Kelly Zinn from LSU, Rutgers knows the key to winning, because, she has repeatedly said winning is what matters. It comes down to money, money, money. And Rutgers, I think, is finally dedicating the resources necessary that will not only bode well for this year, but for future years. I think now they are finally putting the resources in place to compete for the players they want. I do think in the case of Lonergan, they felt that was a better fit than Mestamaker, but it's nice to know that we could get someone of that caliber and have the resources to do so.
And it's nice to know that KJ Duff didn't tank our entire budget, that we're still able to be in the competition for guys who aren't former 5 stars per se, but are former 4 stars, have started on good teams, and we're kind of playing a little bit of money ball, but we still can afford to do that. It's like we're gambling, but we don't have a losing hand yet.
Yeah, and I think with KJ Duff, I think it was more than money for KJ Duff. I think KJ
100%. Yeah.
He loves playing at Rutgers, and he's a Scarlet Knight.
Rutgers was one of the few schools that took a chance on him coming out of St. Anthony's.
And that's what you want on your team. You want people who love the program and who are dedicated to the program and not just money. I think KJ and Antoine are 2 great examples of that.
Let's see. Who did KJ Duff visit in high school?
I know he visited Rutgers, Penn State, and
I
think it was really just those 2 schools for the most part.
He was a tight end in high school.
St. Anthony's ran him as a tight end.
His other offers were he got unofficial visits to a few, but the only others offer I see here is from Tennessee, and everything else he got 1 official visit to UNC before Belichick, and then a few other unofficial visits.
The fact that Tennessee recruited KJ tells you all you need to know. That they
gave him the offer too.
Knowing how well Tennessee gets guys that are tall and that play wide receiver, they were trying to add him onto that roster of just
Tennessee has big and fast catches.
Yeah. Was that when they had Yamaliava still? Or who was that?
Yes, that's correct.
He would have been playing last year would have been his year with Ayamalava.
Yeah.
And this year, if he ended up staying there, he would have been alongside Chris Bardell.
I just call him Nico.
In the SEC.
Hey, Joey Aguilar is a really good quarterback, but Ethan statistically was right up there with him. So
Gabe is the one who said at the beginning of the year, and I disagreed with him, that Ethan would outperform DJ Lagway. And
by the way,
proved correct.
Those same Florida fans that came at me for that, they might be seeing DJ Lagway commit to Florida State in the next coming days.
If Lagway commits to Florida State, he should be ashamed. You don't commit to your rival. I'm not.
If Lagway commits to Florida State,
that would be so funny. They spend the entire year defending him. He's having a stinker of a year, and then
for Florida State to go from DJ Uyunglele
Yeah.
Tommy Castellanos to DJ Lagway, just meme quarterback
By the
after
way,
meme quarterback after meme quarterback.
I thought that DJ Lagway and DJ Ukulele, I thought they were the same guy for like a couple days.
Oh, well.
They play like it.
It's a totally different subject for a different time, but from an X's and O's standpoint, I really wonder what happened to DJ Lagway, what he struggled with. Was it post-snap reads? Was it bad offensive line? I don't know, but his
post-snap reads, he can't read coverages. That's why the year when he got there and he had that good game against Sanford, being able to throw for over 300 yards, and then his first SEC game, he threw multiple interceptions at Tennessee. Like he has the arm talent. Like Lagway, he's mobile in the pocket. He throws cannons, but he just can't read defenses. Because if you're throwing multiple picks, it's not in a game. It's because you literally can't read the defense more than it is the defense showing you something that you can't stop.
Yeah, and if you throw a ball and the defender deflects it into an interception, it's still your fault because you should be throwing over the defender's hand.
And you know what?
I wouldn't say all that. I would just say for Lagway, a lot of his interceptions are for just him throwing it at a defender or throwing it into coverage.
I think he
didn't really have that many fluky interceptions that were just tips.
Yeah, the only interceptions that aren't your fault are when your receiver drops it and he's wide open. But anything else, like even if you're throwing the ball and the receiver drops it, but it's at a weird angle and he had to make like a weird effort to get it, that's still your fault as the quarterback. I mean, if you're gonna enjoy the limelight, you got to kind of, not suffer, but you got to endure when the team is getting the blame too. And Florida severely underperformed. They were ranked 11?
13th. 13th coming into the year. DJ Lagway was one of the 5 Heisman watch list guys, and they were saying that it was going to be a run for the best of the SEC between him, Arch Manning, and Ty Simpson.
Yeah,
and my bad. I forgot one more person. Yeah, Garrett Nussmeier.
Yeah, it's crazy how many teams underperformed. I mean, number 1, number 2, number 4, what was LSU 10?
They were to start off the year. They were 5.
5. LSU 5. Kansas State, Illinois, Florida. I mean, you can go on forever. Was this the year that we saw the most teams disappoint?
I would see this as the year that people recognize that football isn't played on paper.
Yeah,
because we saw you mentioned Illinois, there were number 9 going into Duke, and Duke was favored to beat them. Then we saw them get smoked by Indiana.
Number 1, number 2, and number 4 all missed the playoffs. Number 1, Texas. Number 2, Penn State. Number 4, Clemson. All missed the playoffs.
I think part of that is because the rankings are not considering the fact that the landscape of college football has changed. There is much more parity, and these teams that are traditional powers don't have the same talent advantage that they did. Now, when it comes to quarterbacks, Garrett Nussmeier had a serious drop-off, just like Lagway did. And I think that one of the best tests of whether a quarterback has NFL potential is going against a Brent Venables defense, because what you said about Lagway is his inability, to read defenses post-snap. Venables is a genius at disguising coverages and, making people think that the corner is covering somebody and they switch. And he did that to Tua Tagovailoa in the 2018 championship, and he did it to Jalen Milroe last year, and he confused Ty Simpson substantially in Tuscaloosa. So being able to read those coverages post-snap, especially, of course, that they're disguised, especially in the face of simulated pressure, is something a quarterback has to do to be elite. Let's hope Lonergan can do that, because if he can,
big chance.
That's why the best quarterbacks right now, the top 4, are players that are able to read defenses. Carson Beck has played really well over the last stretch of games. Trinidad Tambliss has been the most efficient QB for most part of this year. Fernando Mendoza has showed that he's able to be deadly with his arm and make the right plays when the plays are needed. And the thing is, compared to what K. Klubnik, Garrett Nussmeier, DJ Lagway, Arch Manning, they had physical abilities that just don't match across just I would say their football IQ just wasn't up to par yet.
I totally agree with you.
In Cade's defense, Clemson was just not good this year, primarily because a lot of their good players left. Nate Wiggins was gone. Their running back this last year, who was an All-American, he was gone, and a lot of their receivers were gone this year. So this team was completely different than what they had last year.
And the thing about Mendoza,
yeah, you got it.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, the thing about Mendoza and Chambliss is, look, when the play breaks down, they can still make plays. They know how to read defenses, but when things, when they're facing pressure and it breaks down, what I saw Chambliss do against Georgia's defense when the play broke down, making throws on the run.
Yeah, incredible.
Unbelievable. And it really shows you that, no matter how good a defense is, a good quarterback with a high football IQ can change the whole dynamic.
And the three most complete teams going into the playoffs were Indiana, Ohio State, and Georgia. And Georgia, I mean, they dominated Alabama, who everyone was like, oh, Alabama, they'll find a way. And then you look pedestrian against Ole Miss defensively when you have one of the best defenses in college football.
Well, Gabe, you know what they say? Styles make fights. And I truly believe that Georgia's defense looked better against Alabama because the offensive line could not protect Ty Simpson, and therefore Ty could not expose a vulnerable Georgia secondary. That was not the case against Ole Miss. And I think because of that, you saw that secondary of Georgia that was somewhat exposed. And I do think that the results reflected that fact. Now, in terms of complete teams, what I saw from Indiana against Alabama reminded me a little bit of Michigan from 2023. They are complete. They have the intangibles. I do not see them.
And Mendoza's better.
When we talk about complete teams, when I came into looking at the groundscape of this playoffs, the entire 12, the most complete were going in off the bat was Indiana, Ohio State, Miami, Oregon, Georgia. It was those five. And Ohio State, for me, I wasn't even surprised that they lost to Miami because Miami was the best defense that they have faced this year since losing to Indiana.
Miami's defense is unbelievable. Miami's defense is incredibly physical and fast.
It's not even their defense. It's just overall their trenches. They have first-round picks on their offensive line and their defensive line. And
I agree with you.
Cristobal is he's an SEC style of coach. As he said after his win against Ohio State, he credits a lot of his coaching to
Cochiano.
And that's wonderful to hear. Downhill running. Ohio State hasn't played against that.
But here's the thing, guys, when it comes to Miami, and I could be wrong, I do not see Carson Beck leading his team to a national title. I think that Indiana's defense.
I don't think so either. But I think the fact that they beat Ohio State and beat Texas A&M proves that it's not the same old Miami and all the haters can shut up.
You're right.
They've had a successful season now, no matter what.
You're right.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the U is back from what we saw.
Yeah.
For Miami, I truly see the national championship being Oregon against Miami because those are two of the more violent teams in this playoffs. And Coach Dan Lanning for Oregon, he's ready for this game against Indiana.
I think he's pissed off at Indy too.
Yeah. He has a chance to do what happened to him last year, being able to play up in a rematch after getting punched in the mouth in the regular season after being deemed the favorites, because I was one of the few people after that game when Indiana won at Autzen, despite being 9.5 underdogs, that Oregon was supposed to humble them the same way Ohio State humbled them last year. They didn't do that. Dan Lanning, if you saw him walking onto the field at that Orange Bowl, you heard him screaming, "A pound of flesh." He was ready. I can see him bringing that same type of energy on Friday.
He's like if Joe Mazzulla from the Celtics took a bunch of steroids.
I think, it's going to, see, that's funny you say that you think it's going to be Miami, Oregon. I think it's going to be Ole Miss, Indiana. And the reason I think so is I think Miami, Ole Miss, in my view, what's going to happen is Miami's going to come out really strong and take the lead, but I think Ole Miss is going to wear down that Miami defense. And in the fourth quarter, I think Ole Miss is going to win by a touchdown or a late touchdown. I just don't see Oregon. I think Indiana is too complete of a team, and in the trenches, I think that Indiana is going to win the battle in the trenches like they did.
That's hard for me to say, seeing what Oregon did.
Is Oregon keeping
what Oregon did against Texas Tech? They looked like the better defense just last weekend. They looked like
they did. No, you're right, and you might be right. I mean, but I think that what I saw in that game was Texas Tech's defense, which is outstanding, really neutralized that offense, and I think that Indiana's defense is comparable and will shut down Oregon enough to win that game. But I think it's going to come down to the trenches with Indiana and Oregon. And like in Eugene, where they dominated the trenches, I think that they will be good enough again to win by a score.
Didn't Mekhi Hughes, he entered the portal, didn't he commit? He committed to Houston. So is he still playing for Oregon next week?
I don't know. That's
huge.
That's the thing about the portal right now that I'm really confused about, because you can see the same thing with Ole Miss. We don't know who's going to be coaching on that sideline on Thursday for Ole Miss, because right now the running backs coach is saying that he's heading to LSU. There's right now talks of potentially, we know Charlie Weiss Jr. is staying until the end of this playoff run, but maybe Lane Kiffin potentially pulls the plug on that, because we're seeing Lane Kiffin little by little telling their coaches, it's either you come now or you're not coming at all.
I just don't get how you can give up on a team mid-playoff run.
Let me tell you something. If a coach says to you, if you don't come now, you're not coming at all, you better say no, because if you go there, guess what? He's going to be just as willing to say, get the fuck out.
You don't know, but the thing is, that LSU job is a really good job.
I know it is.
Like, that's why these coaches are getting scared into leaving, because they don't want to lose that. That's good money for their families, and that's really good legacy-wise for a coach on their resume. For a lot of those coaches being able to even come with Lane Kiffin, that's major. That's why right now the number one thing for the NCAA they need to do in this offseason is restructure the coaching carousel. Try to make it somewhat similar to the transfer portal, to where it's just a strict time for these coaches to leave and adjust, and potentially let that be a week before any of the bowl games play, and then have these coaches be able to be on their new teams for the bowl game. Because right now, Lane Kiffin has Ole Miss's coaching staff in a full Nelson, because he's having the people leave little by little, and that's just unfair to the players. Very unfair, because they don't know who's going to be
and the players
to guide them for this game.
They don't even roster Lane Kiffin anymore. They're saying that he's stealing the limelight from them.
Well, coaches should not be leaving in the middle of the season. There's got to be some regulation that says, you know what, you cannot try to poach coaches during the middle of a season like this. There's got to be some restriction.
And the portal cannot be going on during the playoffs.
Oh, of course not. And so they have to do this, because it's not good for the players, not good for the coaches, not good for college football.
It's not good for college football. It's just that they're scared to mess up the money, because there's so much money involved in it now compared to what it was before. And that's the issue. Back in the day, a lot of the money was involved, but it was so under the table that only one conference really had an issue with it, and that was the SEC. Now it's everywhere.
Well,
and
there's stories
recognized.
of the Big Ten.
Good point.
But that was before the modern Big Ten is what it is. I mean, that was the old conference, but yeah, I mean, it was everywhere. It's just not every college did it, so it offered the unfair advantage.
Yeah, but now every college has the opportunity to use their money. And that's why we're dealing with the issues that we have right now, because a lot of the coaches and a lot of the players are holding out just for one offer to be bigger than the one they currently got, because they don't want to leave anything on the table.
I think the issue is that it went from something completely not allowed, NIL, to something not just allowed but unregulated. There was no transition whatsoever.
And that's what happens when big decisions are made quickly without considering how the implementation of that decision will be. And that's why action needs to happen.
Yep. They just haven't put down guidelines yet. Like, I truly believe over this year to the next 5 years, we're going to get a deeper understanding of the rules in regards to the transfer portal and the coaching carousel window.
And by the way, players are going
to have to make that a window.
By the way, players are going to be mad at it too. And they have a right to be mad, not at the final outcome, but at how it came to be that way. Like, they're going to be mad that all of a sudden there are regulations. And I understand that, because you go from like an unlimited free world in terms of how much money you get, what's going to happen for you when, but it's going to have to happen.
That's why
in that situation you got to blame for the players, the quarterback at UNLV, and for the coaches, Lane Kiffin, because they took it out of hand.
That's why you don't put the cart before the horse. You do not have major policy changes without considering the implications of those policies.
Yeah, I would blame the committee, the CFB committee first.
Well, I'll tell you, whoever's to blame, there has to be some regulations on this, because it hurts the players, it hurts the coaches, it hurts the program. I mean, what happened with Lane Kiffin this year should be the precedent that says this has to stop.
Yeah, and we're not just saying that because, we're poor old Rutgers. That situation doesn't affect us directly whatsoever. It's just obvious, and it will eventually affect us and other programs.
I would say it affects us just on the fact of just how the portal works right now for a lot of the players. Because, like, let's say Rutgers was able to be in bowl eligible, and they saw a lot of their staff or a lot of their players leaving during the midst of that.
Well, that's why we didn't play a bowl in general.
Yeah.
Because players were leaving, because coaches were fired, because players were declaring. We thought that
messes up the entire bowl season slate.
Yeah,
that's why it affects everybody, because it affects how postseason football is going to be played, especially for teams that are looking forward to be in postseason football next season.
I guarantee you that if we didn't think that you had to win 6 games, we would have accepted that bowl invitation. But the fact is, we accepted the season being over. We made moves around the season being over, and that's why we declined it, because we were already in off-season form, because we thought that you had to get the strict number 6 in order to get the invite.
Yeah, I mean, I personally would have taken the bowl game, but regardless of that, I think that the destabilizing effects that have been shown in college football, it really needs to be changed. You cannot be forcing teams like Indiana, like Miami, like Ole Miss, like Oregon, to be facing a transfer portal while they're trying to prepare for a playoff game. And people criticized Lane Kiffin for what he did. Well, I wouldn't say you should focus on criticizing Lane Kiffin. You should criticize the system that enabled that to happen, and that's got to be changed.
And by the way, Cignetti is going to be 100% the scapegoat if they lose against Oregon, because everyone on the internet, everyone in the Oregon fan base, and eventually everyone in Indiana will be saying that he focused on the portal instead of the playoffs, when realistically you should never have to choose.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with you. And Jason O has a point. Look, I understand why Rutgers declined. My feeling was, let's get the players some experience and end on a positive note after a very difficult loss to Penn State. But having said that, it is what it is, and there's reason to be optimistic now. 7 days ago, I'm saying singing a different tune, but things have changed, and you got to give credit. But what I will say to AJ Surace is, don't look at this as a done deal. You are in a competition now, and you can win it. You can beat out Dylan Lonergan and embrace the competition, because it's not only going to
happy, man.
Better, it's going to make you better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No job security. You don't get job security as a sophomore. You hardly.
If Surace is able to see this as an opportunity to prove himself instead of seeing it as the coach is trying to replace him, that's going to determine on if he starts week 1 against UMass or not.
And guess what? They got Dylan instead of Drew Mestemaker, instead of like a Dylan Raiola, whoever, because AJ Surace is this good. They wanted to hit someone on his playing field, probably a little bit better at this time in their careers, to challenge him. And they didn't just bring in Dylan for AJ Surace by any means. They still wanted a proven, capable quarterback 1. But there's a reason that they didn't reach for the stars at quarterback.
Well, you know what? I would bet $100 on it that Shiano talked to Nick Saban about Lonergan.
Oh, I'm sure.
And as part of their player evaluation, it was made clear to him that this guy was in the competition against Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson and didn't start because of concerns that he was a true freshman. But I think the upside of Lonergan is substantial. But this doesn't mean AJ Surace won't be the starter. I mean, like
I'm excited for
Donovan
it
said,
regardless.
it's the mindset that you have. Embrace the competition; it'll make you better, and it could lead to you being the starter. So it's all good for Rutgers football.
I'm excited regardless of who is starting in September.
I'm excited, but like I'm just saying that the bar we're right here right now.
Yeah.
By the end of the portal, we gotta get here because
Yep.
there is still some players on the grocery list that we haven't got yet in regards to position.
I need to see defensive linemen and secondary. That's
I mean, realistically,
I need to see offensive line and defensive line.
Offensive line, one more tight end, and any position on defense.
Yeah.
And that, I guess, does it for the first portal episode. I mean, we're still going to have some more portal talk next week because there will be new faces.
Well, let me ask you guys a final question. What's if there was one thing that Rutgers needs to focus on now, given what they've acquired, to make the team better, what should it be?
2 words: offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, that's
offensive line. If you want to run the ball with Antoine Raymond and potentially move him from an 1,000-yard rusher to a potential 1,200, 1,300-yard rusher, you got to get offensive linemen.
Yeah. I mean, I would say...
And they got to get somebody with experience at that center spot. My bad, Gabe.
No, you're good. I think, honestly, as much as we need defense, every single position on defense is still sort of up in the air. We're filling in gaps shortly. Offensive line, I get, because you can't just throw 2 or 3 capable guys out there and expect Antoine Raymond to have the year he had and Dylan not to get sacked 30 to 35 times. But you need a freaking defensive staff already, man. The longer we waited last year, eventually we had to settle for Rob Smith and Zach Sparber. And eventually, I mean, we didn't know how catastrophic it would be, but eventually it proved that way. I mean, I think it's a good thing that we hired Jim Turner early. Adam, I believe you mentioned his history of possibly being in the know about some not cool things at Miami with the Dolphins, and I'm not for that, and I hope that he's learned from it. But as a coach, I mean, there's a reason we hired him so quickly because he knows football. But we need to hire someone already, anyone, whether it's defensive coordinator, safeties coach, corners coach, whether it's linebackers coach, freaking defensive end coach. We need to hire some staff, man.
And look,
in a month.
There may be some questionable conduct in his past, but I believe in giving people second chances and not judging them for mistakes they may have made. So maybe it'll be a positive development. But since I was late to this show, you guys close out the show because you guys are the ones who started, so it's all yours.
I was going to do a little thing with showing some old freezing cold takes that we've had. And Adam, not going to lie, spoiler alert, most of them are yours. By no means of my own did that happen. It's just how it is. But honestly, we're at 2 hours, so we'll do that next week. I'm optimistic, and I don't think that any of us have reason not to be optimistic at this point. However, as the great Kobe Mamba Bryant once said, what's there to smile about?
Job's not finished.
Job's not finished.
Rest in peace, Kobe.
Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. Rest in peace, Gigi Bryant. Rest in peace, all the passengers and the pilot. But with that being said, Donovan, do you have any final thoughts about the state of Rutgers, the transfer portal, anything else we talked about on the show?
They survived the first round of the transfer portal, and they're starting off hot. I'm wondering how they finish off this portal window, because as we're seeing more and more in college football, especially just over the last 2-3 years, the team that's able to win the transfer portal window is the team that's winning national championships.
Yeah.
We saw it last year with Ohio State. We're seeing it this year, potentially with Indiana. Indiana went heavy into the portal, and they were able to become a playoff team. Typically, the top 5 teams in college football are genuinely the best 12 teams that make it to the college football playoffs are heavy portal teams. Ole Miss was a heavy portal team this season, same as Miami. Right now, if you're able to win the portal, that generates success for next season, and Rutgers is starting off hot, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah. And, I mean, we tried to follow that formula last year. It didn't work out. But this time, I think we're going for more of a Moneyball approach than a big name approach. But yeah, I'm optimistic too. You mentioned that we survived the first round. I would give in terms of who stays and who leaves round, I would give that an A or an A minus because the guys that we needed to stay around stayed put. And in terms of players coming in, it's still far too early to grade, but based on what I've seen, I'd give it a B or a B minus. And yeah, I'm optimistic. And you know what, Adam, do you have any final thoughts? Because I never ask you that.
My final thought is simple: keep chopping.
100%. All right. Well, we're going to be here next week, January 12th, same time, 7 o'clock. You wouldn't know it started at 7 o'clock because it's already 9 p.m. Eastern time. But we're going to be here same time next week. If there's anything crazy that happens, which I'm sure there will be, then we will hopefully have an emergency show. It wasn't able to work out over the weekend, but it's okay. It made this show that much better. So until then, peace out, Jason O. Peace out to everybody watching, and go Scarlet Knights.
Go Scarlet Knights.